I don't think walking into a cauldron like the Azteca will ever be replicated.
They did that against Mexico. They could find themselves 2-0 down very easily.
I can't see France winning the World Cup.
But if we get through this hurdle, then we really are prepared for anything.
Hello and welcome to the Inside Channel. I'm Sam Matterface. He's Alex Crook. We're in New York City ahead of what is going to be an amazing round of last 16 at the World Cup. It's been a brilliant tournament so far. Drama galore. Argentina taken to the distance by Cape Verde. What else could happen? Alex Crook is here. Hello, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling fresh as a daisy. What about yourself?
Absolutely. Look, cards on table. Alex and I, as he sucks on a water bottle, Alex and I went out last night in, I'd say it was the Upper East Side, I think, but I can't remember exactly where it ended up. It was a very late night. We ended up doing karaoke. In fact, look, if you're watching on YouTube right now, here's the video of Alex and I singing what I think is probably the theme of the World Cup. Here you go.
The day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
I think we probably should include that just to sort of give everybody context as to why we are in the mood that we're in today. Look, it's the first time we've actually had a proper night out together, isn't it? Since we started the World Cup journey probably about 4 weeks ago. And that's unlike us because we usually spend a lot more time together than that.
It's pretty much my first night out of the tournament, actually, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case. Sort of. England take on Mexico on Sunday. We're going to have a brilliant chat with Gabriel Clarke, basically the don of a post-match interview. He's going to join us and talk about England and what it's like to be in that moment straight after a game where you have to ask a manager difficult questions, where you have to speak to a player about an incident that is maybe controversial, but the sort of the pressure that comes with that, having to deliver the answers that everybody wants in 2-3 minutes straight after the full-time whistle. He's also going to talk a little bit about Mexico as well, and what it's like being in Mexico right now ahead of that last 16 game with England. We'll talk about the opponents in just a second, Crook, but let's talk about the big story that you and I were very much involved in yesterday. We were talking through Talk Sport, the process that FIFA were going through, or not going through, as it eventually turned out, in trying to move this kickoff time. Let's have it clear. They tried to move England-Mexico to earlier in the day. What happened?
Well, it was bizarre because the first the English FA knew about this was when they had to start fielding questions from journalists because it had been reported in Mexico, as you say, that the kickoff time would be brought forward by 6 hours to midday local time, I think about 7 o'clock in the evening UK time, which obviously for viewers back home would have been more palatable than 1 o'clock in the morning, although
absolutely
a lot of people are looking forward to pulling all-nighters now that Sir Keir Starmer has granted pubs permission to stay open until 5 a.m. The English FA rallied against it, the Mexican FA rallied against it, the various fans bodies rallied against it, because there would have been some England fans, quite a number I think, who wouldn't have been able to get there for that kickoff because they booked flights obviously around the original schedule. Now, we were told that it was because of concerns over thunderstorms. Those concerns remain, so I think there's every chance this game does get disrupted. But I think equally FIFA had security concerns because we saw the tragic events after Mexico's last game against Ecuador, so I think they were keen to guard against that. I think it was more about security than about the weather, because they could have moved any number of games for weather reasons. We had that 2-hour delay in the France game in the group stage.
Absolutely.
So it never really sat right. And actually, even as they were flying on a flight with no Wi-Fi, Thomas Tuchel and his players didn't know until they touched down what time they'd be kicking off. So, yeah, hardly ideal preparation.
Yeah, I mean, England were not happy about it. There's no doubt that Thomas Tuchel was furious about the idea of changing the kickoff time. Javier Aguirre, Thomas Tuchel was furious about it, but he didn't say anything publicly. We can tell you privately that he wasn't happy about the change of kickoff time. It eventually didn't happen, and England will be happy about that. But Javier Aguirre, the Mexico boss, was furious and walked into a press conference and told everybody he was furious about it, and said that FIFA hadn't consulted him, his players, or the Mexican FA before this discussion had started. So he confirmed the whole story, basically. But, I mean, it would have been absolutely scandalous to move a fixture forward at this short notice, especially suggesting that it was to do with the weather when no game has been moved for the weather over the course of this tournament so far, and we've had several rain delays. So you're absolutely right. It was definitely security concerns. My understanding is that they were a little bit concerned about two things. What happened if Mexico won? Because there was over 1 million people on the streets after the last victory. And what happened if they lost and how they would react to that. So they were a little bit concerned about those two eventualities and how they were going to police it. That was, I think, the key issue. England fans have been trying to find safe spaces or the England fans groups, I think, have been trying to find safe spaces for England fans to congregate in the aftermath of the match, no matter what the outcome, because they wanted to make sure that there was a protected area just so that they could keep everybody safe, really. But those discussions eventually ended with the kickoff time remaining as it was, and it does mean everyone's going to have to pull an all-nighter back home, but also that kids are going to stay up very, 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 very late, or have to get up early in the morning. Let's talk about the game itself, because England are walking into something here, aren't they? Let's start with the ground, the Azteca, the iconic stadium in Mexico. They've played 10 World Cup games in that stadium, Mexico. They've never lost one, not one. And the altitude, the crowd, it'll be absolutely deafening in there. And you've got the most intimidating fixture left in England's half of the draw before you even name a player. I mean, I think that the game against Brazil, if they get through that in the quarterfinals, will be difficult, but I don't think walking into a cauldron like the Azteca will ever be replicated again. This is going to be some occasion, isn't it?
Yeah, and obviously it's some ghosts need to be laid to rest, because it was in this stadium, wasn't it, in 1986 that Maradona scored his hand of God goal. Thomas Tuchel has embraced that in the lead up to the game and said that he is ready to exercise those demons. I agree with you. I think this is a more difficult game than a potential quarter-final against Brazil in Miami, arguably more difficult than facing Argentina in a semi-final, just because of the environment, because of the atmosphere that you mentioned about, and because of Mexico's incredible record at the Azteca, and because of how they have navigated the tournament so far. Let's make no bones about it. Mexico have been far more impressive in their games than England.
Yeah, they're flying right now. They won all 3 group games. They didn't concede a single goal, not one in the group stage. Then they beat Ecuador 2-0 in the last 32. That was their first World Cup knockout game in 40 years. 40 years, they're embracing it. They're confident, they're organised, they're at home. How do they play? Well, Javier Aguirre is 67 years old. He's third spell in charge. He's a bit of a pragmatist, but his teams are very compact, hard-working, hard to beat. It won't be a spectacle. It will be a wall. They will be desperate to try and keep England out, as many teams are when they play England. England can prize it open. Mexico struggle for creativity through the middle. When teams sit in against them, they can look a little bit disjointed, but they are tough to open up. They can also run out of ideas going forward, actually. I mean, look, their biggest outlet so far has been the crosses into the box for Raul Jimenez. Yes, a couple of brilliant, fantastic individual goals, but truly, I have to be honest with you, the story of the World Cup for me has been Gilberto Mora, 17 years of age. He started the game against Ecuador, became the second youngest player ever to start a knockout game at a World Cup. And the only name above him in the list is Pele, so he's in very, very good company. This is a very special player. This is a very motivated team. Julian Quinones, you remember him from scoring in the opening game and in that game against Ecuador. He's in great form. And Edison Alvarez, the captain sitting in front of the back four, West Ham fans will know him really well. He's one to try and disrupt and get out. A former teammate of Declan Rice, would you believe? Actually, I don't think they were teammates. I think actually Edison Alvarez came in when Declan Rice left for Arsenal. So lots of connections. Lots of difficulties for England to try and navigate. I actually think that England will get the job done. Do you?
I think if you'd asked me after 60 minutes against DR Congo, the answer would have been no. I'm worried about this game. As you know, we've got a trip to Miami penciled in for the quarterfinal. We're going to go anyway, myself and producer Ryan. It's not going to feel the same if it's Brazil against Mexico or even Norway against Mexico, because you know I'm quite strong on Norway beating Brazil here in New Jersey tomorrow. So I think England have got to start a lot better than they have in any of the games so far. The first half against Croatia wasn't great. Ghana was a non-event. Panama, they rode their luck at times. And DR Congo, they were outplayed for the first 25 minutes. If they do that against Mexico, they could find themselves 2-0 down very easily.
Listen, I think that the motivation that England will have to go through to the quarterfinals, the idea that they're up against it, people talking about the fact that this is the toughest game, the disruption and the build-up to it, Thomas Tuchel's anger, I think will motivate England. And I think that they'll have the bit between the teeth when it comes to kick-off time. I think Harry Kane obviously has been sensational over the course of the tournament. Jude Bellingham has too. But I do think it's time for some of the others to step up now. You can't go through a whole tournament just relying on these two players that are dragging you out of the fire on the regular. That can't happen for the rest of the tournament. So at some stage, somebody else has got to step up. Team-wise, what are we thinking at right back? I mean, this is the perennial discussion now, isn't it? We've had 5 already. Are we going to have a 6th right back?
I think we might, I had to do a projected team for Star Sports, or the team that I would pick, and I had Ezri Konsa at right back with John Stones coming in alongside Mark Gay as centre-half. I don't think Jed Spence covered himself in glory against DR Congo. Obviously, he was the victim of a lot of Thomas Tuchel's ire, which has been much debated. Speaking to Fabian Hertzler about that earlier in the week, he didn't see it as bullying, but just Thomas Tuchel trying to get his message across. So, yeah, I think there is a chance that Ezri Konsa shifts that right-hand side. And in terms of other changes, I think Anthony Gordon probably has played his way into a starting place with what he did off the bench against Congo.
Absolutely. I think he was excellent in the second half of that game and obviously created both of the 2 goals. Talking of Star Sports is the place to be. If you want to back the boys this summer, they are best price on England throughout the course of the tournament, if it's outright or if it's in-game. Whatever, their best price England. It's Star Sports, the leading UK independent bookmaker. You can find them at starsports.bet. It's over 18s only. And make sure if you do need gambling advice, you go to gambleaware.org. Right, let's get to our big interview. Gabriel Clarke has been reporting on some of the biggest football matches in the country for many a year, over 3 decades. And he's going to give us an insight as to what it's like in those key moments straight after a football match when you need to speak to a manager, extract the information that the audience wants in just a small, quick window, what it's like to speak to Sir Alex Ferguson at half-time in a big Champions League game, what it's like to witness England at a major tournament, what it's like to be embedded with the national team. And also, when things go right, how it feels, and when things go wrong, what the pressure is really like. One of the great privileges about doing the job I do is I get to work on many of the England games, covering them at World Cups, European Championships and qualifications for tournament as well. I'm lucky enough to be part of a really good ITV team, an amazing group of people, brilliant journalists and production staff, and probably arguably the best reporter in the business, the man who's always on the touchline after the England games, at the major tournaments, the man who produces those brilliant, emotive, hard-hitting packages, the guy who's never afraid to tackle a massive story. He's also a producer, a director, someone who makes films and documentaries, as well as doing the work he does in sport. He is, of course, Gabriel Clarke, and he joins us on the Inside Channel. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. You are in Mexico City. Are you excited about what's going to happen over the next 24 hours?
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you, Sam, and thank you for that. Yeah, very excited. It feels like one of the biggest England occasions that I've had the privilege to do. It really does, because we know the history with this fixture. England in Mexico City, England in Mexico, over previous World Cups. We knew this tie was a possibility, but for it now to be a reality, and the build up to it has been intense. It's been maybe reflective of previous tournaments. This sense of a mythical place, this sense of a mythical stadium, this sense of a fixture like no other when it comes to the World Cup. So to now be on the eve of it, and to have interviewed Thomas Tuchel ahead of it, to have got a sense within the England camp of how much they're looking forward to it and embracing the fear, the inferno, has been really exciting. So when you look back and you look at some of the great England World Cup games and tournament matches you've been to, this feels like it's standing out. It really does.
And obviously, we've been on this journey over the last 5 or 6 weeks. You and I first went to Miami. We followed the warm-up games. We've done Dallas. You've been in Kansas. You've been embedded with the team in Kansas. Have you noticed a shift in their outlook over the course of that period of time? Because I think when we left, everything was very much about England trying to win the World Cup, England putting the second star on the jersey. Is that still the narrative that the coaching staff and the players are pushing, that is still very much their aim? Obviously, it's their aim, but is there as much belief in it now as there was at the beginning of the tournament? Probably is the better question.
When you ask the players, and I asked Thomas Tuchel yesterday something similar to that, yes, there is. I think it's just hard. It's harder when you've had the reality of the matches to maybe believe in it externally, and therefore you question internally their belief. And when you see them having to fight and endure and struggle, and embrace the struggle, Tuchel has called it, then maybe that does sow seeds of doubt. But this group are very good at that togetherness. They're very good at having that resilience. It's something I think that's baked into them from club level now. A lot of those players, like the Arsenal guys, Harry Kane at Bayern Munich, winning trophies in the last year or two. And I think that resilience, when you're questioned that you might not be good enough, is within this group. And it's one of the reasons, I think, to believe that they can do it. I'm not sure the footballers necessarily told us that they are at the level required to beat France or Argentina or some of the other major nations, but certainly the mentality is strong. That's unquestionable, I think. And you've seen that in the way that some of the games have played out. Poor first halves in halves, and they've been better and they've recovered. And their resilience, and their resilience and their physical resilience, their endurance, their powers of everything are going to be tested by this trip, because it's been difficult. It's been difficult in the last couple of days. It's going to get more difficult before the game kicks off. And then the game itself, with the altitude, the unknown, I think, as far as that is concerned, it's going to test everything they have. But speaking to Tuchel yesterday, I ended with the interview by saying, could this be one of the greatest England victories at a tournament ever, certainly on foreign soil? And he agreed. And he said, we've gone through that. We thought about this fixture coming. We saw our names against Mexico, and we knew that if we get through this hurdle, then we really are prepared for anything.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I hope that it goes as we expect and hope, because then it does set up that mouth-watering quarterfinal, potentially with Brazil in Miami a week today. You've been doing the job a long time. Do you still have the same buzz when it comes to that few minutes straight after a game? What is it that you like about that post-match duel with the manager? How do you see it? Because you do so many of these interviews, and it must have changed over time.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure I've really sort of analysed how it's changed over time. I think you change your own process a bit, and obviously the mechanism of it has changed. It's much more formalised now. I think the process, even compared to sort of World Cups and tournaments 20 years ago, it seems like there are more people around you, more things surrounding you, that you almost have to park and forget about. I think the sort of key to the job is ensuring that you ask the question within that mix, that the sort of 2 to 3 minutes that you're given, that viewers want to hear most. And that is reflecting, I think, the story of the game. As you know, as a commentator, what is the story? So I don't think that has ever changed. You're just having almost to just, I find more and more, I think, doing the job, just make sure that you clear a space in your head to remember what is important, and not to get necessarily too carried away with some of the more emotional questions, which have to be done. And that part of it as well is, especially on a big occasion or when there's been a late winner, it is reveling in that emotion, isn't it? So you have to, that has to be reflected. But also, and maybe we get two goes at it. We get the super flash on the pitch that people will be aware of, especially at World Cups. And then 5-10 minutes later, you're in a flash position where things are more considered. And you can get more time, certainly, with the managers. So it's a different type of skill. But I just try and tell myself each time I do it that ensure that you're reflecting the story. You're asking the question that maybe on a bad day certainly is the hardest to ask, but you have to then get the tone right, get the words right in the way you ask it, because there's always a risk in that. There's always a danger that it will be interpreted the wrong way, or you'll say it the wrong way. So that I think is as you know from commentary, that's just the skill. That's just the moment, isn't it? That's ensuring that you're prepared in the moment.
And is there a manager or an interview that you look back on and you think, I absolutely love doing that, or I really enjoy talking to this guy? And are there ones that you find a bit more of a challenge?
Yeah, I think it's often the ones you enjoy. I've never really been good at listing or remembering. I think it's big occasions, certainly. I'll never forget Istanbul 2005 in the Champions League when Liverpool won somehow. And we almost went rogue, or we were allowed to go rogue with our interviews. And I think for the first time, we just stood there and the players almost came to us. And instead of doing an interview that lasted 1 minute, 30 seconds for ITV's live coverage, it became almost a stream of consciousness that lasted 6 or 7 minutes, because it was so special, and player after player came, and the floor manager did a brilliant job, and ITV stayed with it, which is, sometimes commercial pressures and everything we're not always in a position to do that. But I think that match, not only was there a huge adrenaline buzz, and you were almost in a sort of special space doing it, as you sometimes get when you're broadcasting, but it was almost a moment when we realized that we can do this. You aren't, don't be controlled by the running order. Come off the running order, because the television and the moment itself will be special. So I do remember that very fondly, because I think it sort of enabled us to think a little bit differently about future broadcasts and finals and how you approach them. Don't be too strict or rigid, because just feel the moment and let the players almost say when they want to come in and speak, and just react to it. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and actually, that reminds me, just talking to you then, of the broadcast that we did when we were at Wembley for the 2020 Euro 2020 final, or 2021 as it was then. And I remember exactly that. We're going into the program. We've obviously spent a lot of time planning to build up to the final, and all of a sudden there is an unfolding story going on outside, and everything gets ripped up, and we do it completely from scratch. And you were at the heart of that, weren't you?
Yeah, I remember. It was unfortunate. It was obviously to do with the fans, and the fans who were trying to get into the stadium and crashing through barriers, and I think having had COVID and limited attendances, all of a sudden that day 80,000 were allowed in. It was a full Wembley, and of course thousands and thousands had come to Wembley almost on a sort of pilgrimage, and throughout the day that had turned it a little bit dark in some areas, and we'd got news that this could be a possibility, and Wembley itself obviously was having trouble, and UEFA, I think, as they admitted, were having trouble dealing with that. So yeah, it was something we had to react to. And I remember Emma Hayes' family being outside, and one of those moments where it was thanks to Emma making calls, and also us talking to people who were on the outside, that we were able to broadcast from the inside and give people insight into that. But it was one of those moments where we had to make a big call in terms of, this was such a special day, England in a final at home. And it had all been going so well and so perfectly and so romantically. And yet we had this really serious incident happening, which we had to reflect. And there was a tonal shift. You come off the running order, you reflect that. It has to be done, because obviously people are watching the television who'll have loved ones there. And you never want that situation. But yeah, you have to deal with it.
Talking of challenges, there must be managers that you find difficult to interview. Who's the hardest?
Well, the one that I found hardest to interview, and it's always been a little bit of a mystery, is Pep Guardiola. Because normally with managers, you would think the difficulty will be because it's been a bad result, and you accept that. But often with Pep, certainly in the course of a Premier League, Champions League season, Champions League essentially with me, or FA Cup, he would be hard to interview pre-match. I don't think he likes the pre-match interview. It certainly doesn't want to disclose anything tactically, and he does an awful lot of them, and I think that's the challenge. And I think post-match he could be either very, very good, and open, and sometimes that was when there was a defeat. And you'd often find your most challenging time would be with him when they had a win, and yet he wasn't really engaging. And I found that difficult, because I always felt that the questions with Pep were often open, and they were often you trying to be, obviously, as that mix of sort of challenging, but also asking him to respond. So I think it was, you know, it was. And you may have similar experiences, but that would often be one. But I always found him to be really good the day before a game with interviews, when maybe your subject was a little bit more feature led, a little bit less to do with the tactical nuance of things. And I think, and I also do think Pep looks at things with such a tactical nuance that some of the more general questions that you ask just don't appeal to him. And I can understand his frustration. I really can. I get that.
He wants us to be more cerebral about things, doesn't he? I think that's
maybe that's it. And I'm just certainly not cerebral enough. And I think you'd like to have that cerebral discussion, and maybe there's the opportunity more to do that the day before a game.
Yeah, I think we're obviously broadcasting in a certain way that we've always done, and I think he wants to get into the real minutiae of tactics, which is not necessarily for everyone, which is why we don't sort of go as deep into that road, especially in like a 5-minute interview. I think if you've got longer, I think you're right, you've got the opportunity to have those discussions, which is more educational for us because we like speaking about those things as well. But he's also I knew he was leaving because he started to be different in post-match interviews. He started to be funny and was playful and joyful, and I thought, all right, he's definitely leaving at the end of the season because he's starting to let loose. He's almost demob happy.
Yeah, and I you know, he'll be missed. I'll miss the challenge. You know, I will, because when it worked, it was, you know, because it was difficult, you got a greater sense of satisfaction. And I don't, you know, it would certainly be, you know, and you should never take those things personally, because I more and more, I think, as I say, the demands on the guys, you can tell why they might be fatigued by certain things. So I always try and bear that in mind, and that to me is the challenge. It's trying to be original with a line of questioning, without trying too hard or trying to be too clever. And I think one of the great things about doing a tournament thus far, anyway, is the fact that it is special. And so for Thomas Tuchel coming to this tournament, it's felt special. So I like to think that the interviews we've done pre and post match, and things have gone well so far. I wait when things don't go so well. But I think that sense of it being special, the nation watching, millions connected in who aren't normally connected in, means that there is more of an audience to the interviews and to the commentary and to the games that we do. And I think that helps that connection to the team and the players, because they get that. They're getting feedback from home about, we saw you on the telly, or there was this chat that you did, or the clip that went up on social media. So this also helps, I think, with this experience. And that again, it comes back to that privilege of doing tournaments, because there is a different feel to it. And when England do well, there's nothing like it. When England do badly, there's nothing like it. When England do well, there's nothing like it. And I've experienced both.
Yeah, and we're very lucky to be involved in those moments. And when they do go well, like they have done over the last few years on a number of occasions, they've been brilliant things. One more question before we let you go, because I could talk to you forever, but I know we're eating into your time. Just about that sort of feeling around the team and how you control that, because a bit like me, I suppose, we're very, very, both of us are very passionate about England and the football team. We want them to win. We want them to be successful. We're desperate for it. But you still have to retain a sense of sort of distance. Is that right? How do you get the balance right of that? I always sort of find that, especially when I'm in the actual game, it's all about concentrating on the actual game and the story. And yes, you can be excited and you can be pleased when things go well, but you can't be a cheerleader, if that makes any sense. How do you get the balance right? How do you check and balance yourself?
Yeah, it's a really good question, but and I think I'm not sure you ever get the balance right. I think maybe there's a greater sense of perspective the more tournaments you do. Maybe with age, the more tournaments you do, there's a greater sense of perspective, so you can bring that. I think so. The extreme high, the extreme low, you try and bring that. I think just in your demeanor almost. So when you're dealing with the players, you try and have that demeanor, and certainly before, during, and after a game. I mean, I do get wrapped up in a game, and I find it harder with this England team because they're talented, and I want them to do well, and they can do well. So the expectation I have is high, and come on, guys, you can do better than this. The manager, you can do a bit more than this, and they'll be feeling exactly the same way. So I think sometimes you've got to almost try and stop yourself from becoming too emotional. It's very important that, but I'm not saying I do it. I think it's something, and it's something I found a test in the last game actually against DR Congo, because I'm having, on the one hand, to watch the game, but I'm also having, with 15, 20 minutes to go, consider the list of questions that are the doomsday list of questions in relation to Thomas and Harry and Thomas's future. So you have almost two sides of you, the Jekyll and Hyde there playing out, and not to not to be pretentious about it, but that's the role essentially. That's the role. You're given that position. You're part of it. You do have to. I think you do have to have a sentiment that is fan-like. Yeah, that enables you to relate to the audience. You have to have that. We love the game. We really admire the players and the management team that we work with. But as broadcasters, we also then have to do our job, which is, in my case, fundamentally covering the story and asking the questions that other people will ask, or will expect you to ask. And if you've got first go at it, make sure you try and cover it in the time that you have, and that's always a question as well. You haven't necessarily got long, so you have to select your questions and make sure that you ask the right ones.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I could have asked you a lot more questions. We could have sat here all day chatting, but thank you very much for giving us your time, and enjoy Mexico City, and hopefully I'll see you in Miami next week.
I really hope so, Sam. I really hope so.
Thank you very much. That's Gabriel Clarke. Gabriel Clarke, wonderful as ever, and he will be part of the reporting team that goes to Mexico City, and of course, big part of the ITV team at this World Cup. And he's a brilliant guy. Do you know what? He's actually a bit of a genius, to be honest with you. And one of the big privileges about working with ITV over the course of the last 16 years has been getting to know him and learning off of him, because he is. He's brilliant. He's brilliant at his job. He's the best in terms of producing those wonderful packages before matches. He knows the right questions to ask, and sort of being able to tap into his wisdom has been quite sort of a privilege, really.
He's
talking
as well, isn't he, Sam? He wasn't in a karaoke bar until 3 o'clock this morning.
I don't think he's ever been into a karaoke bar ever. He's definitely not been to a karaoke bar. France against Paraguay, Philadelphia, Independence Day. Philadelphia, the home, birthplace of America. It's where the Liberty Bell resides. France taking on Paraguay in what could only be described as a fascinating last 16 tie. Mbappe scored a brace in the 3-0 win over Sweden. They look the most complete side left at the World Cup, but I've just got this feeling. I know you think they're going to go and romp it and win the World Cup. I just got this feeling. I can't see France winning the World Cup. I think something will happen. It's not that I don't think they're the best team. I think they are the best team. There's no doubt about that. But the best team sometimes comes up against a roadblock at some point and it surprises you. I watched Argentina with you last night.
Yeah.
I was absolutely baffled about what happened there. But I don't think it'll be Paraguay. But I do think further down the line, maybe against Morocco, they'll struggle a little bit. Canada against Morocco is after that. What are your predictions for a very quick Independence Day double?
Well, I think France will win. You were trying to make the case last night for their journey coming to an end against Morocco. Do Morocco definitely beat Canada? They probably do. The fact it's on US soil and not in Canada, I think plays into their hands. But you say the best team don't always win. You're right, because 4 years ago France were the best team, and they lost the final to Argentina. So I think they're gonna be on a quest to try and make up for what happened there. I've seen nothing in this tournament to suggest they've got any chinks in their armour. Really, maybe the midfield's a little bit slow. The fact Rabiot's still playing a lot of minutes is a little bit baffling. But they're the best team. They've got the best forward line. Defensively, they've been pretty strong. Obviously, you've got Spain in the other half of the draw, who seem to be coming to the boil, but based on what we saw from Argentina last night, they can't lay a glove on France. So obviously we've got our pre-tournament anti-post tipping competition. I doubled down on France. You've doubled down on Spain. I'm feeling very confident. I don't see anybody stopping France.
You always feel confident. You feel confident anyway. Even when you're wrong, you feel confident. You just change what you said.
But they'll beat
up.
Paraguay, and I think they'll beat Paraguay quite comfortably. And yeah, Morocco will come through against Canada.
Brazil against Norway at the MetLife. I'm doing this one. Haaland against Brazil and against that back line. The single most watchable duel, I think, of the last 16 stage. Norway shipped 4 goals to France, but they didn't pick their first team for that game. No. So I think you should probably discount that. Haaland, I think, will get on the score sheet. He always does. But I do think that Brazil will get the job done.
I fancy an upset. I fancy Norway quite strongly. I watched Brazil in their round of 32 game. They didn't convince me. I think there's a lack of legs in midfield. I think defensively they're vulnerable. Haven't really got a number 9 as good a tournament as Mateus Cunha is having. And Norway just seem to have the momentum. And obviously their fans are going to be here in New Jersey in their number. They're going to be doing their Viking row, which has been one of the sights of the World Cup. So I am predicting a Norwegian victory in this one, maybe after extra time and penalties.
Portugal against Spain, maybe the tie of the round Monday night. Ronaldo still going just about. He was hauled off in the game against Croatia and then they managed to get over the line. Does he start this game?
Yeah, absolutely. His reaction to being taken off was quite telling. And actually there was a chance that Roberto Martinez was going to be his club manager at Al Nassr. They've now appointed Ange Postecoglou. I wonder if Ronaldo rang the president from the bench and said, look, you can't hire this fella. He's just taken me off in a World Cup. But again, they weren't impressive, Portugal. They rode their luck. Obviously, it backfired on me tipping the draw after 90 minutes, but Croatia should have gotten something out of that game. Probably should have won it. And yeah, I think Spain will be too good for Portugal.
The big game out here is Monday night. It's USA against Belgium in Seattle. And I can't tell you how massive this is, like off the scale. The audience peaked at 31 million on Fox, just the English language. Obviously, they have 2 channels here. They have Fox Sports and Telemundo. Telemundo is the Spanish language channel. But just on Fox, it was 31 million people at peak watching the last USA game. The idea that football is catching on here is no longer sort of like a discussion point. It's catching on. There are people in the bars. Everyone's talking about it. Football is on wall to wall. It's 24/7. If it's not a live game, it is reruns of a game, or it is people embedded with the USA camp giving us information about what's going on behind the scenes with Mauricio Pochettino's team. They are addicted. Great, fantastic, brilliant to be around, actually. Listen, Belgium are rubbish. Honestly, I was in that game in Seattle the other night, as you well know, one of the most dramatic comebacks in World Cup history, but they are rubbish. They honestly didn't play for 86 minutes. And I think the only reason they ended up getting over the line was because Leandro Trossard had a massive go at Yuri Tielemans for not passing him the ball. And Tielemans felt a little bit sort of charged up by that and then went and scored twice before the end of the game. I'm still not entirely convinced about the penalty that won it, to be honest. No. However, no Balogun for USA, which is a problem in terms of focal point.
Yeah, and it is a red card. It's a dangerous tackle, but there was certainly no malice intended. So you have to feel for Balogun. You have to feel for Mauricio Pochettino and the US team. I think it's as good a time to play Belgium as any, as you've already mentioned. But without Balogun, I think this might be where the US journey ends.
On to the tipping competition then. And I'm still 1 point in front. Now, I know we haven't won for a little while. However, I want to give us a bit of a big up here because we have been very, very close, mightily close, in fact. You had Portugal-Croatia draw the other night, and obviously, I think we know there was a bit of controversy about the Pasalic touch, which denied Croatia an equaliser in the, I think it was about the 196,000th minute of the game. I had Ismaila Sarr to score and Senegal to win it in 90 minutes. Bearing in mind that Belgium came back and scored 2 goals in 2 minutes 38 seconds right at the end of that match. We weren't far off, to be honest with you. I also had Spain and Argentina to win to 0. Obviously, that didn't happen. Argentina a little bit loose. I mean, Cape Verde, probably the story of this entire tournament with their amazing, heroic performances. And in particular, Vozinha. We were in a bar, the Central Park Tavern up on the Upper East Side last night, Upper West Side, actually, sorry, last night. And everyone in the pub was just singing, Vozinha, 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 the whole game. It was amazing. It really was. So I think we've done all right, actually, despite the results. So what are you going for to try and get ahead this weekend?
Well, you mentioned it already. France in action against Paraguay. Paraguay stunk the place out in the first game against the US. If you'd have told me then that they would be still here by this stage of the tournament, I'd have been surprised. Obviously, a brilliant victory against Germany. Germany subsequently have got rid of their manager, and we think Jurgen Klopp is coming in. So I'm backing France big time. I think anyone who's watching and listening will know that. I've gone Kylian Mbappe to score 2 or more goals.
All right, you've really stuck your neck out there. Well done. I'm going to go for France to win to 0, and I'm going to go for Morocco to beat Canada as well. That's my July 4th double, an Independence Day duo. So that's my tip for this weekend. France obviously been the best team at the tournament. I do actually think they'll get through this one. I think they'll have a tougher time against Morocco when they play them after they've beaten Paraguay, but I think they will definitely get through this round. Thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you very much to you and to Gabriel Clarke as well. Thank you very much to you for listening and watching as well. We really appreciate it. You may remember at the, I think it was towards the end of the last episode, Crookie was complaining about being very, very hot. And I produced a FIFA pack, I don't know if you saw it, in which I came up with a cooling device, a fan. I then struggled to open said cooling device, as Lily from North Carolina pointed out.
3.
What?
It's a cooling device. I don't know how it works though. Yes, I looked a little bit stupid there, didn't I, really? But I'm pleased that she's given me a tutorial. I love that. That was fantastic. Lily, thank you very much for giving us a bit of an educational tutorial as to how to use a fan. Absolutely vital in New York right now, where it is 39 degrees Celsius.
I'm not going out.
Good.
I'm not going out today.
You're not allowed out after not getting in until 5 o'clock in the morning, fella. Anyway, right, that's it from us. Thank you very much. A big thank you to our supporters, Star Sports. Starsports.bet is the place to be if you want to back England throughout the course of the tournament. They're the UK's leading independent bookmakers. You can find them at starsports.bet. It's over 18s only, and please be gamble aware. We'll be back to review the England game, probably, I suppose it'll be Monday morning your time. Hopefully England will be in the quarterfinals and we'll be heading to Miami.